Introduction to the integumentary system. So this is the first system that we cover in the organ system survey, which we will cover all 11 organ systems. And it's a brief introduction to each organ system, and you're going to need to know the functions of the system and the anatomy. So it's just a little brief introduction to the anatomy, and then later when we cover the integumentary system in detail, there'll be much more that we will add to it. So this is just a little introduction. First, let's see. Okay, I want to tell you the integumentary system, the system of the skin. I want to say that the skin is the largest organ of the body. The largest organ inside the body is the liver, but the largest organ of the body is the skin, which is also referred to as your cutaneous membrane, the covering, your outer covering. And the integumentary system has 4 major functions. Do you know, can you name one of the functions of the integumentary system? Maybe try to think of all 4 functions. See if you can name how many of the 4 can you come up with. So one of the functions of the skin is protection. It is a protective barrier. It also is involved in secretions. Sensation has all these little dendritic receptors to detect different sensations. And the skin plays a role in thermoregulation and homeothermia. Homeothermia is just another name, another way to say thermoregulation. Thermoregulation is the same thing as homeothermia, and that is maintaining constant body temperature. The integumentary system plays a role and helps in maintaining a constant body temperature. So this is a model of the skin, and what we have on top here is the epidermis. So all of this layers and layers and layers of squamous cells, it's stratified squamous. All these layers and layers of squamous cells are going to help be the barrier and the protection. So this is the epidermis. Below that we have the dermis. In the dermis we have the glands and the dendritic receptors. And then below the dermis we have the hypodermis, or subcutaneous fat. Now the hypodermis actually is not considered part of the skin. It is below the skin, but we still teach it with the integumentary system. It is right underneath the dermis, so it's still taught with the integumentary system, but it's not considered part of the integumentary system. So it's the hypodermis, below the dermis, or subcutaneous fat, because that's what it is. It's just a big cushion, a layer of adipose tissue or fat. Now back to the epidermis. I said this is layers and layers and layers, stratified, squamous. The top layer of the epidermis is referred to as the stratum corneum. And so you have this strata, but the top one is the stratum corneum, and those cells are fully keratinized dead cells. So the cells at the top of the skin, your very top layer here, those are just dead cells. So it's okay if you scratch them, they're just dead cells, and they slough off and contribute to dust. But what is inside of those dead cells is a tough protein called keratin. It's a fibrous protein, and it's the same protein that is found in our hair that gives structure to your hair, and it's also, there's a keratin, it's called hard keratin, that's found in our nails. So they are like scale-like cells, the squamous cells, because they have that tough, hard keratin inside of them. Now let's talk about the glands. So there's 3 different kinds of glands found in the dermis. This one is the eccrine sudoriferous gland, right here. This one is the apocrine sudoriferous gland. Apocrine sudoriferous gland. And this one, associated with this hair right here, is the holocrine sebaceous gland. So this one right here, this was the eccrine sudoriferous gland. This one right here, what is the name of this one? Apocrine sudoriferous gland. And this one right here, holocrine sebaceous gland. Let's talk about these glands. So the eccrine, also known, sometimes referred to as merocrine gland, the way this is, how does it secrete? The method in which the eccrine or merocrine gland, the method in which it secretes is just normal secretion through a duct. So it has these little secretory vesicles, and it's just regular normal secretion through a duct. The apocrine apocrine glands, the method in which they secrete, they pinch off part of the protoplasm. It pinches off part of the protoplasm when it secretes. And because of that particular method, it gives the secretion a distinct odor. So there's apocrine, they're creating sweat, but it's pinching off part of the protoplasm, which gives you your distinct odor that allows, like, dogs and pigs and these animals can smell, and they can find you if they're like in a search and rescue. If they had like your shirt and they got your scent, then they might be able to find you because of the apocrine glands, because the method in which they secrete, they pinch a part of the protoplasm. The holocrine glands, the way they secrete is the entire cell fills with oil and explodes. So the whole cell fills up with its secretion, which in this case is oil, and it ruptures. So you have those 3 different glands, and they are different. One way in which they're different is how they secrete. So the eccrine, normal secretion through a duct, just normal secretory vesicles, normal secretion. Apocrine, what's different is it pinches off part of the protoplasm when it secretes, gives you your distinct odor. And the holocrine, the method of which it secretes, the cell fills with oil and explodes. So this is another diagram sort of demonstrating the methods in which they secrete. So let's look at A. What's happening here? It's this entire cell. It gives rise to an entire cell that ruptures. So that one would be the holocrine type. What about B? B, normal regular secretion. There's secretory vesicles that secrete normal secretion through a duct. Which one was that one? That one is eccrine or merocrine type of secretion. And C is pinching off part of the protoplasm that gives you your distinct odor. So what type of gland secretes by pinching off part of the protoplasm when it secretes? So you should have said apocrine. Now, it says glands within the skin, what and where? So the eccrine or the merocrine, which is normal secretion through a duct, they secrete sweat. And sweat, that's referred to as sudoriferous. Sudor meaning sweat. But that is what it secretes. Where are they located? So the eccrine sudoriferous glands are located all over the body, everywhere, all over the body, but predominantly in the volar region. Does anybody remember what is the volar region? Well, that was on the first lecture lab video. What is the volar region? Where do you have this high concentration? Predominantly located means you have them like in a very high concentration in this particular location. Where is the volar region? So the volar region is the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. So sometimes you get like sweaty palms. That is a shared, these two areas have that in common, is that there is a high concentration of eccrine sudoriferous glands in the volar region. Okay, the other gland, which is the apocrine gland, it also secretes sweat. So it is going to be referred to as the apocrine sudoriferous gland because it secretes sweat. Now, the apocrine sudoriferous glands, where are they located? They're also located everywhere all over your body. But predominantly, they are found in the axilla, which is your armpit. They are found in the inguinal region, which I refer to as the thigh pit, between like where the pelvis meets the thigh. The inguinal region, and they're also predominantly located circumnipple and circumanus. So there's a high concentration of these apocrine sudoriferous glands around the nipple and around the anus. But they're located all over the body, but predominantly like in a high concentration in the axilla, the inguinal region, circumnipple, circumanus. Okay, the holocrine. What does it secrete? Well, the way it secretes, it fills with oil and explodes. So what it secretes is oil, which the term for oil is sebum. So what does it secrete? It secretes sebum. And so this is why it's referred to as sebaceous gland. Now let's talk about where it is located. The holocrine glands that secrete sebum, so the holocrine sebaceous gland, are located with every single hair follicle. Every hair follicle. So the eccrine and the apocrine are sudoriferous, and the holocrine is sebaceous. So when I ask you what is the name of this gland, you need to include whether or not it is sudoriferous or sebaceous. So if I say, what's the name of this gland? You can say, apocrine sudoriferous gland or holocrine sebaceous gland. It's kind of like his last name, because it's telling me what he secretes. And we're talking about where is it located. Well, the eccrine are located predominantly in the volar region, while the apocrine are located predominantly in the axilla, inguinal, circumnipple, circumanus, but everywhere, all over the body, as well as the eccrine. While the holocrine is located with every single hair follicle. Now this symbol, the Q, in nursing, that is a symbol you use in your nursing notes, and it means each and every. Like you would say, take this medicine Q day or Q 4 hours, and that means every 4 hours or every day. Each day or every. Okay, this diagram is also demonstrating the 3 different types of glands in the dermis. So this one right here, that one would be the eccrine sudoriferous gland, while this one is the apocrine sudoriferous, And the gland that's like right there associated with the hair follicle, that's going to secrete the oil. That's the holocrine sebaceous gland. What was the name of this gland right here? What was the name of this one? That is the eccrine sudoriferous. What is the name of this gland right here? That is the apocrine sudoriferous. And what is the name of this gland? With the hair follicle. That one is going to be the holocrine sebaceous gland. Okay, so another one of the functions of the skin is that it has all of these like dendritic receptors for sensation. And for this first test, I want you to know the name of 2 of the dendritic receptors found in the skin. So this one right here is the Meissner's corpuscle. And because of where it is located, it is best at detecting light pressure. Just a little bit of pressure because it's right here beneath the epidermis. And the other one I want you to know is this one, which is the Pacinian corpuscle. The Pacinian corpuscle is deep down in the dermis, practically in the hypodermis, and so it's going to be best at detecting deep pressure. So up here we have the Meissner corpuscle for light pressure, and the Pacinian, down here we have the Pacinian corpuscle for deep pressure. So for this first test, let's just learn those 2, and just those 2, okay, for now. Later we're going to learn some more. Now what else? The erector pili muscle. The erector pili muscle right here, that's what's going to cause the hair to stick up and be responsible for the goosebumps, the chill bumps. And then the hair follicles. So here we have the hair, but all of this layers of epidermis and dermis around the hair, that makes up the hair follicle. So the hair follicle is like the hair plus all this epidermal layers and dermal layers. So this whole structure here is the hair follicle. This is another model I have of the skin called the purple plastic. It's got inside this purple plastic. My purple plastic skin. Let's see if you can name those parts. So what is all of this right here from here to here, all of this section? What is this whole section called? That's going to be the epidermis. And within the epidermis, what is the name of this top layer, number 1? What's the name of the top layer of cells? That's going to be the stratum corneum. And it is full of what? What makes up the stratum corneum? What kind of cells and what do they have inside of them? So those are fully keratinized dead cells. They're full of keratin, that tough fiber, the same fiber that's in your hair and the same fiber that's in your nails. So it's fully keratinized dead cells. Okay, so far you have told me epidermis and stratum corneum. What is the name of this layer? Number 6. That is the dermis. What is the name of layer number 7? That is going to be the hypodermis, also known as subcutaneous fat. What is the name of this gland right here? There's a gland here, here, here. What's the name of this gland? That is the eccrine sudoriferous gland. This model does not have an apocrine sudoriferous gland. It doesn't have one. This particular model doesn't have one. So what is the name of this gland right here? What's the name of this gland, number 10? That's going to be the holocrine sebaceous gland. What is the name of this muscle? The muscle here. The erector pili muscle. What is the name of this nerve ending? Just beneath the epidermis. And what is it best at detecting? What is it best at sensing? So that's the Meissner corpuscle, and it is best at detecting light pressure. What is the name of this nerve ending? And what is it best at detecting? The Pacinian corpuscle, because it's so deep down, practically in your hypodermis, it is best at detecting deep pressure. What is the name of this entire structure? All of this, number 12, all of this here. That is going to be the hair follicle. Okay, now we're going to review the 4 functions of the skin. Let's see if you can remember what were the 4 functions of the skin. So to start, the skin is a barrier and it helps protect you. So the things that the skin helps protect us from, one of them is invasion, foreign invasion, bacterial invasion, fire infections. So it's a barrier and it helps prevent organisms, microorganisms from penetrating and getting deeper down into the dermis and into your body. So it's kind of like the wall, it's like a barrier. And most organisms cannot penetrate past the skin. However, there are some viruses, like the papillomaviruses that cause warts, and the herpes viruses that cause herpes, that can penetrate through the epidermis, through that barrier. And there are even some bacteria, some teeny, tinier than tiny bacteria that can penetrate the epidermis. So it's not completely, there are still viruses and even bacteria that can penetrate the dermis. But if the epidermis, if the epidermis is got cracks in it, sore, ulcer, well then there's no longer the barrier and organisms can get in and cause infection. So obviously the skin helps prevent infection and it protects from foreign invasion. Also, the skin helps protect us from ultraviolet rays because there are these cells that spread the melanin out like an umbrella to protect the DNA from being damaged by the UV rays. So it helps protect us from ultraviolet rays. It helps protect us from the effects of osmosis, which is the loss and gain of water. So like if you jump into the ocean, a fresh water ocean, you're not all of a sudden all the water is not rushing into your body and you explode. So you don't lose water and you don't gain water. It's like a barrier and protects us from the effects of osmosis. If you were to lose your skin, like as a burn patient, that is one of the concerns is the loss of water because there's no barrier to prevent the evaporation of the water that's in your dermis and underlying tissues. So that is an actual real issue. So the skin truly does help protect us from the effects of osmosis, the loss and gain of water. And the skin protects us from mechanical abrasion, and that's like if you're injury from being rough, and like if you're working with your hands or you're hitting a 60 golf balls. So if you have this like repetitive motion and you keep doing it over and over and over and over, like hitting a golf ball over and over and over, and you're not wearing the glove, you can get like an ulcer. You know, you can have an open sore. But over time, if you keep doing this, you naturally develop a callus on your finger, and you get this thick layer of epidermis, of stratum corneum, to protect you from a mechanical abrasion. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. So, Charlotte, I was teaching them their body regions. Do you want to show them that you know your body region? Okay, where is the mandible? Good. Where is the maxilla? Maxilla. 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 No, maxilla. Right here. Okay, we'll try another one. Sternum. Okay, clavicle. What about frontal?
Frontal? What is that?
Frontal. Frontal. The forehead. And right here. Occipital. Occipital. Yeah, your back of your head. The back of your head. Okay, what about scapula? Yeah, back there, scapula. What about glabella? Yeah, that's something that y'all will learn later when you get to the skeletal system. Okay, what is the name? Where is the temporal region? Temporal. Yes. What about zygomatic?
Zygomatic.
Zygomatic. Close. Getting warmer. Ooh, 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 ooh. Right there, zygomatic. Good job, Charlotte. Good job. Yay.
I have my shirt on.
You got your shirt on?
Yeah.
Now she really does know like more like where her bones are and stuff. Oh, well, they're going to do the skeletal system next. The next video is the skeletal system. Do you want to show them where is your radius? Where's your radius? That's, yeah, right here. Where's your humerus? Humerus. You want to show them the calcaneus? Okay, they can't see that. Calcaneus. Your humerus is right here. Ha ha ha. On the arm. Yeah, very good. Okay, well, it's kind of hard to show you because the video is like so little. Okay, so goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. Gonna let mommy do my video. I'm almost finished. Another function of the skin is secretion, and we already know the 3 glands that are contributing and producing these secretions. The functions of the secretion, like why does the skin secrete, and how does that... So one of the functions of secreting is to keep your skin lubricated and help prevent desiccation, which means to dry out. If the skin were to dry out, then you would start to get little cracks in your epidermis, and then that would be vulnerable for microorganisms to invade and get in deeper into the dermis and cause infection. So one of the purposes of secretion from those glands is to just help keep the skin lubricated and help prevent the skin from desiccating and drying out and cracking. also within the sweat and the oil, there's substances that help deter the growth of microorganisms. They do not like the waste products that are in the sweat. They're kind of like poisonous. And they don't like these microorganisms. Most of them are not fond of the salt that's in the sweat. It's just too salty. And in the sweat, there's this immunoglobulin A. It's like an antibody that fights microorganisms. And the oil has a substance that's sort of like an antibiotic and helps prevent the growth of microorganisms. So most microorganisms do not like the environment of our skin, and they don't want to live on our skin because of these secretions, because of what is in the sweat and the oil. It prevents the growth of most microorganisms because they detest the environment of our skin. However, there are some microorganisms that can tolerate the environment created by these secretions, and they do live on our skin, and they make up what we call our normal flora. So we do have some organisms that are just like always living on our skin. They can grow in the environment created by our skin. And another purpose, we sweat in order to cool off the body. It's one of the cooling mechanisms. When we sweat, the sweat evaporates off of the surface of the skin, and as a cooling mechanism, it helps cool off the body. And in the secretions, there's waste products. So really, secreting onto the surface of the skin is a method of excreting waste. So it's also like excretion. The primary sensations that we have are touch, pressure, temperature, and pain, which stretch would be associated with pain. So those are the primary sensations that we can obtain, we feel from the dendritic receptors found in our skin, in our dermis. And any other sensation you feel is considered a secondary sensation, like if you feel like an itching or a tickling. And a secondary sensation is just two or more of the primary sensations. And then I told you that another function of the skin is to help, it plays a role in helping maintain constant body temperature. And so one of the things that the skin does when you're hot is you sweat to help cool off the body. You sweat, and then the evaporation of the sweat helps cool off the body. But another thing that happens in this dermis is the blood vessels in the dermis, they will undergo vaso. What is the word? What will those blood vessels do to help with cooling off the body when you're hot? What's the term? So you should have said vasodilation. So the blood vessels, when you're hot in the dermis, they'll undergo vasodilation. And so they'll go from just whatever size they are to a larger diameter. And that puts them a little bit closer to the surface of the skin, and it allows heat that is within the body. It helps enable that heat to escape through the surface of the skin like radiation. So it allows heat to irradiate off of the surface of the skin. And you're kind of like a little radiator, and heat's just coming off of you. Now when you're cold, what will happen? One thing that will happen is the erector pili muscles, which will cause the hair to stand straight up. and that's going to result in the chill bumps. Now, some places that when you read about the erector pili, they are considered or maybe referred to as a vestigial structure. Now, vestigial structure is something that was important in your evolutionary past but is no longer important today. And we have a number of these vestigial structures, but I don't believe the erector pili quite qualifies as a vestigial structure, because even though it doesn't work to help keep us warm, it is a form of communication. Because if you were to observe somebody to have chill bumps, you would say they're cold, and you would maybe go and get a blanket or turn down the air condition or something because you realize that they're cold. So I don't think it quite qualifies or classifies as a vestigial structure 100%. So, but erector pili, when they cause the hair to stick up in a furry animal, so the fur stands up, and the heat that is lost through the surface of the skin is trapped between the fur and the skin, and so it is exactly like putting on a fur coat. So, but we're not the furry animal, so it doesn't really work that good for us. But it can help communicate if you happen to be unable to communicate. If someone to see your chill bumps, they would recognize that you're cold. And then the other thing that the skin will do, the blood vessels in the skin will undergo vasoconstriction, and that will keep the blood vessels deep in the dermis and help prevent the loss of heat through the surface of the skin. So when you are cold, your skin, the blood vessels kind of pull deeper into the dermis, so the skin color, it will become pale, maybe even like you'll have purple lips, because you're pulling that color away deep into the body. And also when you're hot, it's just the opposite. The blood vessels vasodilate, and they get closer to the surface of the skin, and so it brings color to the skin. So instead of being pale, you become pink or red or flushed. And so these are the 4 functions of the integumentary system.